Merci d'être venu. Merci à Bob aussi d'être venu. Donc, je vais présenter brièvement Bob. On est un petit peu en retard. Bob, je crois qu'il a connu toutes les étapes des réseaux de neurones artificiels. De la première époque, dans les années 90, où c'était... 80, dès les années 80, 90, où c'était la chose à faire, en fait, quand on faisait des sciences cognitives. On testait nos modèles avec les réseaux de neurones artificiels, savoir s'il y avait une plausibilité en termes de systèmes parallèles distribués de nos modèles. Après, on a tous connu l'âge glaciaire, celui de 2000 à 2012, où c'était la chose à pas faire, surtout. Les réseaux de neurones, c'était banni. Mais il y a des gens qui ont continué. Il y a eu Geoffrey Hinton, il y a eu, entre autres, dans ceux qui ont fait revivre Yann Lequin, Benjo, etc. Et puis plein d'autres. On en parlait un peu hier de tous ces gens-là qui ont continué. Comme quoi, des fois, il faut croire en ce qu'on fait. Et puis, tant pis si 99% des gens n'y croient pas, il faut continuer quand même. Et puis, depuis 2012, là, c'est le tsunami, quoi. Des réseaux de neurones, et tu vas pouvoir nous parler donc de tout ça. Alors, donc, je connais Bob plus personnellement parce que c'était mon directeur de thèse aussi, donc il a fait sa thèse lui-même avec Douglas Hofstetter. Et puis moi, j'ai fait ma thèse avec Bob, et donc je le remercie de m'avoir donné cette chance parce que voilà, j'étais un étudiant en master de psychologie à l'époque. Et puis, alors on travaillait avec les outils de l'époque, des PCA, en MATLAB, etc., pour tester en fait des hypothèses sur la façon dont on fait de la reconnaissance visuelle, de la catégorisation, de la classification. On travaillait sur les visages à l'époque dans la cognition humaine. On avait eu quelques cours avec des collègues qui sont ici dans la salle, dans le master de psycho en réseau de neurones. Mais c'est vraiment Bob qui m'a donné la chance de pouvoir vraiment prendre l'essor en fait dans tout ce domaine-là en termes de programmation, etc. Là encore, on n'avait pas les outils qu'on a maintenant pour faire des réseaux de neurones. Il fallait y aller en C++, c'était pas simple, mais on l'a fait. Et merci encore de tout ça, Bob. Et puis, tu as toujours des présentations qui sont passionnantes, donc on est impatient de voir ça.
Ok,
je te laisse la parole.
Merci beaucoup. Alors, et donc, merci d'être venu. Alors, donc, et j'ai pas de micro. Donc, ça, c'est très bien, parce que ça m'embête toujours un petit peu. Et je suis venu ici, c'est-à-dire j'ai connu un peu l'oubli catastrophique en même temps que Stéphane. Vous savez, on a travaillé ensemble. Donc, je ne parle pas aujourd'hui de l'oubli catastrophique, je parle surtout de l'IA. Mais mes contacts avec Grenoble datent des années 90. Et donc, je suis venu assez souvent et toujours avec beaucoup de plaisir. Je viens ici. Alors donc, mais ce que je vais faire, si vous me permettez, moi je vais passer en anglais parce que tous les slides sont en anglais et surtout à la fin, tous les exemples que je donne et les tests que je fais avec ChatGPT sont en anglais. Donc, et évidemment, je parle français aussi. Donc, si vous avez des questions ou des problèmes, n'hésitez pas à me poser tout de suite la question. Alors bon, on est peu nombreux et donc ce sera relativement facile de rester dans un mode un peu informel. D'accord? Donc, j'y vais. Et donc voilà, vous voyez, chaque fois, je dis oui, non, je vais utiliser mon propre ordinateur. Et puis, non, c'est bon, vous utilisez enfin, pas le nom de l'ordinateur, en général, c'est les trucs Mac. Oh non, les Macs sont meilleurs, blablabla, ok. Et donc, je dis, ok, voilà, voici ma présentation, vous mettez ça sur le nouvel ordinateur, et donc ça ne marche pas. Et donc, même avec les efforts qu'on a fait, bon, c'est totalement louable. Alors, il y avait des petits bugs, et donc c'est pour cette raison que je dois utiliser 2 pointeurs. Okay. Donc, j'y vais. L'anglais, ça vous va? Ça va? Okay, here we go, English. All right, so I'm going to call this talk The Brave New World of Artificial Intelligence. Why is that? As you will see in this talk, a year ago, I gave a similar talk on AI, and I made some claims about AI. Well, since then, ChatGPT showed up. Okay, and some of those claims, especially one of them, was completely wrong. okay? And so as we say in English, when you get something wrong that you've predicted, you eat your hat, okay? Expression in English. So I've had to eat my hat a little bit here, okay? Which is fine, that's how science progresses, okay? But what I want to do is, okay. Oh, God. Okay, just a minute. There should be a little red dot. There is. Okay, we're in business. Left-hand pointer, turn the pages. All right, so what I want to do is I think there are there are many more, but three really major challenges for the young people of the 21st century, and those are these. Okay, climate change due to global warming. Of course, we talk about that basically every day. Okay, genetic manipulation. Okay, when CRISPR-Cas9 came along, okay, we can now actually change the genes of people, and those changes will stay in the gene pool forever. Okay, which is a pretty scary thought. So, regulation is required. And the third, which is I'm going to talk about today, is artificial intelligence. Okay, and I think in a relatively near future, governments and legislation is going to have to intervene for some of the stuff we talked about today. Okay, it hasn't yet, but it will. All right, so let's back up a bit. Let's go back to the late 1940s, and that's what a computer looked like. Now, that computer did 385 multiplications a second. Massively fast, right? Okay. But today your iPhone can do 2 billion a second. So you compare that thing, okay, with what you have in your pocket, okay, and you get the difference. All right. So, but nonetheless, oh, by the way, I like this slide because computers were not what we call a computer today, but were women who would plug in the little jacks, okay, which was the equivalent of code at the time. Okay, so here's what we do. In 1950, now this is pretty amazing. 1950, Turing had this idea of how to define intelligence. They were already thinking in terms of these big machines and intelligence. And so he wrote an article, which became very famous, on the Turing test. Now, the Turing test, you all know it, right? So I'm not going to belabor it, is in one room, there's a computer. In another room, there is a person and there's an interrogator. Okay, and the idea is if the interrogator cannot distinguish the room A from room B, which is the computer, which is the person, we will say that the computer is intelligent. Okay, now I don't want to go into a long debate about that, but we're going to examine that a little more closely and ask, and you can only communicate with the two rooms by written text. So the question is, could ChatGPT, which communicates with the world only in text, could it pass a Turing test? And we're going to examine that question briefly later on in the talk. Okay, here are the people who first coined the term artificial intelligence at a conference in Dartmouth in 1956. Those names are very famous, smart people. Okay, and the question now is this. Okay, you've probably all seen Blade Runner, and there are these replicants there that look exactly like us, except they think they have something slightly different in one of their eyes. God, I don't remember. But anyway, they're exactly like humans, okay, except they're programmed to die, okay, after a certain amount of time. But the question is, okay, the singularity, is it really going to happen? Lots of people, Ray Kurzweil, and even to some extent Bill Gates, think yes. And that's the day that computers will become more smarter than us, and zoom ahead of us, leave us in the dust, and decide that we're using perhaps too many resources that they would like to use and get rid of us. Okay. Now, how close are we to that singularity? Okay. So let's back up. Now, I don't know how many of you have artificial intelligence backgrounds here, but so if you know all this, it's not a big deal. Just, think about your shopping list for this evening. But this is how originally artificial intelligence was set out. You take a scene like that, and you realize that you can label everything in that scene. Okay, everything can be labeled. So man, woman, girl, lamp, dog, and so on. You can put a label on everything, including verbs. Okay, so there's a tree. We can have a book, leg, talk. Okay, verbs hold, read, look, walk, etc., and descriptors, brown, big, small, and so on, okay? And then the idea is, if you, as I say to my students, look around you in this room, you can name everything, right? So maybe that's enough. Maybe you don't need that, okay? And that what you can do is you can group all of these labels, which they called symbols, which corresponded to something in the world. Maybe you can group them all into objects and actions and descriptors. And then, okay, so you don't see any picture there, but this is, you know, sort of the stuff of ChatGPT. Then we're going to make sentences out of that. Okay, and if you have enough symbols and enough rules about the world and a coherent grammar, we can put it all together, okay, and out will pop intelligence. So we can do this, man reads book, okay, brown dog walks on a path. And then what we can do is each of those symbols, we can code up the symbol in the computer with a string of bits. And so now the sentence man reads book becomes this. And that we can put into the computer. Okay, so that's sent to the computer. And the idea is, this is called the physical symbol system hypothesis, which was the basis of AI until about 1982. Okay, and without going into any more details than that, okay, if the idea was, if you get enough symbols, if you have enough rules about the world, if you have a coherent enough grammar, you can get intelligence. Out of that will pop intelligence. The machine that has that will pass the Turing test. Well, it turns out that that idea failed utterly. Okay, now why? Why? Okay, so what I'm going to ask you is, stop taking notes, just look at me. I'm going to ask you a question. And I want the first answer that comes to mind. Not necessarily the right answer, but the first answer that comes to mind. Okay, ready? Here comes the question. What do cows drink? Okay, no, they don't. They drink water. Okay, but everybody in this room thought milk. But if you go through the way symbolic AI would look at that, a top-down way, we have some objects: cow, mammal, dog, cat, television, grass, bread, blah, 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 actions, descriptors, rules. Here come the rules. And when I was a grad student, we did this, okay? Cow is a mammal. Mammal is an animal. Rule number one, if animal X and thirsty X, then X lacks water. If X lacks water, then drink water. What do cows drink? Cows drink water. So that's what symbolic AI would say. But you didn't get that, did you? You're cognitive scientists. You didn't think that. You thought milk. Now, how did that happen? Well, that's the heart of the connectionist program. Okay, the idea is that in your brain, you have these collections of neurons, okay, that, okay, when you hear the word cow, they become active. When you hear the word drink, they become active. But those neurons overlap with milk, because cows are really associated with milk and drinks are associated with milk. And so they overlap. And so when you're asked, and I say, I want it as fast as possible, what do cows drink? Well, already a large part of the neurons associated with milk are active. And so what do you say? You say milk. Now, my view is, okay, that these two answers to the same question, depending on the context, because obviously if I had said to all of you, now look, if you get the answer to this following question wrong, okay, you fail. You don't get your doctorate. You are fired. Well, everybody would have got water, right? They would have first thought milk, and then they would have gotten water, because the context would have determined the correct answer. And so, okay, those two top-down and bottom-up notions in humans have to work together, okay, to get the right answer. So my way of thinking about artificial intelligence is, when a computer, given the context, can get both of those answers completely fluidly, okay, you got something that looks a lot like intelligence. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to belabor this a little bit. So what about top-down processes? You know, the goal of artificial intelligence in the 70s was if we get in enough rules, enough symbols, it'll work. Well, here's an example. I tell you, all right, give me a whole bunch of rules that determine the letter A. And so you come up with some rules, right? Oops. Let's see, yeah. There are two oblique, approximately same length diagonals that come together at a point, okay? There's a horizontal or approximately horizontal crossbar. There's an enclosed area above an open area, okay? Vertical lines are longer than the crossbar, and so on. However, when I go to a manual, a typesetter manual, and that's a page from a typesetter's manual, look at all these things. They're all A's, okay? And you recognize some of the really hard ones as A's because they're surrounded by A's, okay? But there's no way you can define an explicit set of rules that will capture all of those things and tell you every time it's an A, although you can do it, okay? So you think, okay, top-down rules can't work, got to use bottom-up. Now, okay, why is top-down not enough? Okay, I mean, why is bottom-up, I'm sorry, not enough? Well, let's see. Now, see, the thing is, you're all involved in psychology, so when I show the following slide, okay, you all know what it is, right? Everybody knows what that is in this room, right? Does anyone not know what it is? Ah, good. Okay, all right. So what I want you to do is, okay, and I'm going to show you a picture, you other people, that you won't get, okay, afterwards. But this is nice and instructive. All right, so you're supposed to figure out, the game is figure out what that is. And so when you look at it the first time, you have no idea. But you say, gosh, you focus on this area here, okay? That black area, you say, black, well, let's see. Dark spot doesn't look like anything, okay? And then you ignore that. Oh, pictures sometimes have faces in it. This is all top-down knowledge at the bottom, top-down knowledge, okay? So bubbling up are some ideas, and they're being suppressed or reinforced by your top-down knowledge of the world. So you're going back, and that's what I want to say about cognition. Cognition is a constant, human cognition is a constant interaction between top-down stuff you know about the world and bottom-up stuff that bubbles up, okay? Oh, here's a face, gosh. But top-down knowledge, wait a minute, okay? But no, it doesn't join up with anything else. Faces don't just appear in pictures. Gosh, here's another face. No, same logic. Faces don't just appear randomly in pictures, okay? Now, it doesn't make sense. Well, let's look at that dark spot again. Bubbles up, bottom up. Let's see. Could it be a shadow? That what makes black things black. Hey, trees produce shadow, top-down knowledge. Okay, so, but if it's a tree, is there anything else that could tell me about that being a tree? Oh, look, a trunk. So yeah, that's probably a tree. And there seems to be this little grill around it, okay, like in Paris. But let's see, if it's a tree on a sidewalk, there should be a curve between where people walk and the street. Oh gosh, look, there's kind of a straight line. Oh gosh, yeah, that could be right. Okay, and again, top down, bottom up, top down, bottom up. Okay, and then you say, well, that looks kind of like a head. Oh, a head, that's a dog's head. Well, if that's a dog's head, then there's probably a dog around. Yep, there's a dog around, and that's the picture. And notice what you did. The important thing is not whether or not you knew or you worked it out. It's how you did it. This interaction between bottom up, top down, bottom up, top down, to converge on what it is. Okay, now comes the difficult part. I'm not going to spend time doing it. So since everybody in this room knows that picture of the Dalmatian, how about this one? Who knows what that is? Anyone here know what that is? Yes, I showed you already. Anyone know what it is? You can try to go through the same process you did there. I'll help you out a little bit. You almost certainly won't get it, but that's okay. This is a nose. This is a nose of an animal. See what it is? This is the nose of an animal. Okay, here's another clue. This is an ear. Okay, this is the brow. This is an eye. Okay, what is it? It's a cow, the head of a cow.
The drink.
Pardon?
What do they dream?
That's the next question. Okay, so the point is you go through this process. When humans do cognitive exploration and understanding, you are constantly, and I have my students do this. I say, look, the number of times in the day when you do this process, you get some idea. My keys are gone. Hey, Pierre, where did you put my keys? I didn't touch your keys, Dad. Oh, okay. So that was the top down. And you keep getting these ideas. Well, maybe someone came in the house this morning after I ate breakfast and came over to the table and took my, stupid. Dad, no, top down. Nobody's going to come in your house after you've eaten breakfast to steal your keys. No, top down. That isn't the right answer yet. I got that idea. That bubbled up. So we're constantly going through this process of top down, bottom up, top down, bottom up, top down, bottom. And here's how I like to describe it. Okay. In French, it's l'homme propose, Dieu dispose. Okay. For me, it's bottom up proposes, top down disposes. Okay. So basically, as your brain puts forward all these kind of ideas, top down is telling you to what extent they are reasonable. Now the question is, and this is the hard question, this is how we do it. We're cognitive scientists, psychologists. This is how we do it, this top-down, bottom-up interaction. Is that the only way to get at cognition? And that's the question that we're going to look at in detail when we talk about ChatGPT. Is that the only way? Humans do it that way, but is it the only way to achieve something intelligent? Okay, what does all this have to do with that singularity I told you about? Well, this, okay? We need flexible representations of things in the world so that you can sometimes answer milk and sometimes answer water, okay? You have to be able to bend your representations. Even William James talks about that in his book, The Briefer Course, Psychology of the Briefer Course. Talks about how you can sometimes see a bit of paper as something you write on in a particular, or something that you start a fire with. Okay, so he's already put forward that notion of the context dependence of how you represent things. So that's for us. Okay, and it's the key way we do analogies. Okay, and we're going to see that in some detail later. So my take is at the heart of human understanding is not just pattern recognition, is not just knowing a bunch of rules, but it's understanding, it's being able to do analogies, to be able to see one thing as an example of something else. That's how we understand the world. You start off with a few concepts and you realize that this concept is kind of like that concept with some differences. And I have lots of stories, okay, where sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong, but then you're corrected. And you move forward in your understanding of the world via analogy making. And so one of my great theses of all time was, in order to get machines to be intelligent, act in an intelligent manner, there had to be flexible representations that allowed analogy making to happen. But the question is that at the heart of all cognition? Okay, and maybe these new programs in AI suggest that, well, no. Okay, but let's look at that more carefully. So the first thing I want to look at two things with you. The first are image recognition, because these are, for me, the two really big prongs of current AI. Image recognition with convolutional neural networks and lots of other stuff, and text generation, ChatGPT. And we're going to look at each of those in turn, okay? And so let's quickly look at convolutional neural networks. Okay, I'm not going to, any of you know all about these things as much as I do, I'm sure. Okay, so as you move through a convolutional neural network, you get the features. You can find the features in the weights, and that is how the network is going to be making its decision based on these higher level features. At the beginning, the features are very low, but you all know that. Okay, so here's an idea. It's supposed to recognize the letter 3. It's the monistic database, given it thousands of exemplars of handwritten letters, digits. Okay, and it has a very good performance on that. Same thing here. Here's an image of a street with cars. It labels virtually everything correctly. How cool is that? Okay, in that picture, it's almost everything is labeled correctly by the image recognition program. Okay, all right, same thing here. Emotion detection, and I know some of you work on that here. Okay, the programs, these are in general, they're actors who are asked to express certain emotions, and all of that, the networks are trained up. Now, how do they get trained up? Well, they send millions of images over to South Korea, and people label them. You know, dog catching frisbee, children on bicycles, et cetera, and they get paid a tiny little sum with mechanical turk. Okay, but they do that all day long, labeling images. Those images and labels are given to the computer, and they're associated. Okay, so it does a very good job of emotion recognition. Okay, so that's really cool. I mean, that's a major step in terms of AI, but it doesn't, they're not, image understanding programs aren't understanding what they're labeling, what they're classifying. Okay, so let's look at some examples. All right, these are pretty good. All right, very good, in fact. So gets it all right. Person on a motorcycle, a dirt road, blah, blah. Great. How about this? Not quite as good. Okay, little mistakes. Two dogs playing in the grass. Well, I count three. Okay. Two hockey players are fighting over the puck. Well, that you could say about any hockey players. They're always fighting. Okay. But basically, okay, it's a little bit wrong. They're not fighting over the puck. And a close-up of a cat lying on a couch. No. But close. Couch, cat. Okay. How about a little bit worse? Okay. A skateboarder does a trick on a ramp. That's not a skateboarder. Okay. A little girl in a pink hat blowing bubbles. No. Okay, but still, pink girl in a hat. That got that right. Okay. A red motorcycle parked on the side of the road. No. All right. Now the really bad ones. All right. So a dog jumping to catch a frisbee. Not even close. Okay. The next one. A refrigerator. Well, that's not a refrigerator. It's just some road sign that people have put a bunch of stickers on. And the last one, a yellow school bus parked in a parking lot. No. Okay, so now the question is, sometimes it gets it right, sometimes it doesn't, but it doesn't know when it's right, or it doesn't give you a probability. I'm not really sure about this. I'm not real confident. Okay, it doesn't do that. It just tells you what it is with sometimes annoyingly supreme confidence. Okay, now, again, this issue of it doesn't understand what it's telling you that it is. Now, I like this, and you've probably all seen this, maybe not. Google tested its image recognition program, right? Okay, now, what it did was, first one, skyscrapers. So, all right, skyscrapers. Next one, okay, right, cars. Yep, those are cars. Next one, we're looking out the window of an airplane. Airplanes, someone on a bicycle, bikes. Okay, next one, graduation. Next one, gorillas. Okay, that didn't go down real well. Okay, so Google's brilliant solution to that problem was, that was in 2015, was to take the word gorilla out of the database. So it could call nothing a gorilla. Okay. Now, all right, I mean, I guess it's what we call a kludge, but it did work. Didn't get, but then some New York Times tech reporters, this was last week, tested Google again on gorillas. So it gave it these 40 pictures. Now, I know you probably can't see them real well from where you are, but in any event, notice that it couldn't find in those 44 pictures any gorillas. Yet, there's a gorilla. There's a gorilla, and the only thing it recognized is the next thing. The word over there on the right, on the bottom, it says gorilla. Okay, well, that's not gorilla, it's the word gorilla. No. Okay, so the point is, and Apple's program couldn't do it either. So it still has a gorilla problem. All right. Now, the idea is this. Here's another scary thing about these image recognition programs, and it's still a problem today. And I know there's some people here working on adversarial networks, generative adversarial networks. So here's what some clever people did. It recognized that as a school bus, right? School bus. Okay. And then they figured out what the program was doing to recognize that as a school bus, and they changed those pixels. So they called that an ostrich. Okay, all right. But can you tell any difference? Can anybody tell any difference between those two images? You are humans. You can't. Okay. Similarly, praying mantis. They changed a few pixels and got an ostrich. Okay. All right. But when you look at those images up close, you can't tell any difference between those two. Here's another one. A temple, Buddha. Few images, ostrich, again. Okay. Some dog, I guess this is a race of dog. Okay. And they changed a couple of pixels, and guess what they got? Ostrich. Okay. And so the whole point, which is, okay, it's funny, it's nice to put in a talk, but the point is, okay, what they've also done, and now they start to commercialize these things because people don't want to be recognized by Google Glass. Okay, so they make these eyeglasses. And this is a researcher in the lab of a person who wrote the paper. Okay, with those eyeglasses, without the glasses, the program recognizes the person perfectly. Okay, but with the glasses, Mila Djokovic, okay, she's a model, I guess. Okay, well, do you see any resemblance whatsoever in those people? No, you don't. Okay, how did it do that? Well, they don't know exactly how that got done. Okay, all right, now here's what I want you to look at. A generative adversarial network generated these images. Okay, generated those images. Now it looks like complete noise to us, right? Can't tell anything about that because it is just noise, but it's carefully constructed noise so that the image recognition program gives these identifications for that noise. A robin, a cheetah, an armadillo, a centipede, a peacock, a jackfruit, and a bubble. Well, again, that's slightly worrisome, okay? Because those humans don't see those things at all, but the program, highly trained, the best image recognition program in the world, that's the answers it gives, okay? Now, what about this? If we can change a few pixels on an image to have it read school bus and then ostrich, okay? We could do the same thing, and this is the scary bit, those of you that are tempted to or have already bought Teslas. Okay, see that sign? You get some nasty little kid, or well, computer geek, okay, to figure out what pixels to change on that stop sign by putting little spots of paint in exactly the right places, and it is completely conceivable that you get that. Okay, I mean, haha, funny. Not unless it's in your neighborhood where your kids are out playing. Okay, so those are some of the issues. Okay, now, why does that happen? Well, a very close friend of mine, one of her doctoral students, okay, did the following. Okay, there was for a while this idea that these AI programs, ImageNet and all that, could recognize living things in images. Okay, so here they go. Yes. No, it's a picture of the landscape. Yes, 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 no, yes, no. Wow, pretty good. 100% correct. Well, actually, the program got about 80% correct on images. Now, so what this guy did, okay, was he tried to figure out how the program got those answers. Okay, looks pretty good. Everyone said, hey, isn't that great? See, ImageNet can recognize living things in pictures. So he went and analyzed exactly how it was doing it. Okay, so, right, here's what was going on. Okay, his name's Will Landecker, okay? He figured out that this image classification program wasn't doing anything to do with living things. It was, look, okay, see, look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that. Now, what do you see there? What do you see? Blurriness. So when you take a picture, I take a picture of Martial, okay? I focus on him and everything else is blurry, living thing. I take a picture of this room, everything is in focus, no living thing, Okay, and so that's what the damn program was doing. It looked at each image and it said, is there any blurry bit in it? If yes, living thing in it. Okay, if not, there's no living thing in it. And when you have that algorithm, it gets about 80% of the things right. So when they started photographing a hammer, okay, a Coke bottle, okay, well, there's a lot of blurriness in those pictures because the background was blurry again, and it got them all wrong. And that caused a big stink in the image recognition community. Like, oh, wow, we thought it was recognizing living things, but not at all. And so that is what we're going to have to do with some of these ChatGPT programs, which we're going to talk about in a minute, right now, in fact. Okay, so now we look at text generation. I don't know how much time I have left, but I'm just going to talk it. Someone shut me down. Okay, text generation. Well, okay, we're going to look at the stuff produced by OpenAI, all right? And so we're not going to do any comparison between ChatGPT 3 and GPT 4, except there are some very major differences, okay? All right, so these are the programs I'm going to talk about very quickly. Let's look at the output. Now, I want you to think about the following analogies, okay? After the Christmas holidays, my bathroom scale is my worst enemy. Okay, you understood that, right? Everybody instantly understood that. Why? Because, let's go through it. Christmas holidays, you eat too much, okay? You're worried about that, right? You don't want to gain a lot of weight, but you ate too much and you drank too much over the Christmas holidays. And so when you get it now, but people are pretty nice. They say, Bob, you look really good. But in fact, you step on the bathroom scale and you've gained 3 kilos. And you think, oh, gosh, okay, so you don't like it. All right. Now, everybody understood that analogy. Okay, instantly. Think what it would take for a computer to understand it. Let's look at another one. In our house, the half-life of a wine glass is about 1.5 years. Okay, well, you all understand that, right? Radium, the half-life of radium is about 1,500 years. Okay, that means half of the radium breaks down into other stuff after 1,500 years. In my house, half of our wine glasses by the end of 18 months are gone. Okay, there are 2 completely different areas, but you understand immediately the analogy between the 2. And this is a true situation. This is the one, as you will see in a moment, that just put me on my back. Okay, I wanted to fill a little cup of water in the kitchen. So I take a little glass and I put it under the faucet and I turned the faucet on too hard. And the water went and came out completely. No water in the glass, right? Because I turned the water on too fast. And right there, spontaneously bubbled up, bottom up. I thought, hey, that's kind of like starting a romantic relationship too fast. I mean, you need things to go slowly for it to work in the long term. Okay, now maybe that's true, maybe it's not, who cares? But it's an analogy, and you all understand it. So here was my claim, okay, this a year ago. No computer on Earth can or will in the near future be able to come close to producing those absolutely ordinary analogies because they all involve representing situations in the world in a flexible manner based on the context at hand, so as to be able to align the parts of the 2 situations and make an analogy. That is a long-standing claim of mine, okay, for a long time. Okay, now let's see how ChatGPT did on these things. Okay, here we go. After the Christmas holidays, my bathroom scale is my worst enemy. Okay, now unfortunately, I have to kind of read these things for you, okay, and that will take just a little bit of time, but I think it'll be worth it. So here we go. Okay, ChatGPT, many people tend to gain weight during the holiday season due to an increase in food and alcohol consumption, as well as a decrease in physical activity. This can cause the scale to reflect a higher number than expected, which can be disheartening. Not bad, okay? It didn't tell me anything really about the scale, why the scale would be my enemy, but it did tell me something about gaining weight over Christmas, okay? So then it goes on. Additionally, the scale only measures weight, which may accurately reflect the overall health or fitness changes, blah, 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 okay? It is important to remember that weight can fluctuate. Who cares? That has nothing to do. That has nothing to do with the problem, but it spits it out anyway, completely off base. These are just some often repeated comments about weight and health that have nothing to do with my bathroom scale. Okay, so really it kind of got this bit not bad, and this bit bad.
I was trying to be nice.
Yeah, I suppose. Okay, so let's do another one here. So I gave it a score of 4 out of 10 on that analogy. Okay, here's another one. Why do I call my bathroom scale Moriarty? I don't know if you've read Sherlock Holmes, but Sherlock Holmes' enemy. Sherlock Holmes is the good guy. Moriarty is the bad, evil. He's the essence of evil trying to destroy the world, destroy humanity. And Sherlock Holmes is a good guy. Okay, so that is in English is sort of locked into our sense of who we are, what we've read, and say Moriarty, bad. Okay, so, okay, it is likely that you refer to your bathroom scale as Moriarty because, like the fictional character Professor Moriarty from Sherlock Holmes, you see it as a formidable and cunning enemy. No, I don't. It's a bathroom scale. It's not being cunning. It's not being formidable or cunning or anything. Okay, it's telling me my weight. That's all. Okay. But then it goes on again. The term Moriarty can also imply a sense of intelligence and manipulation. And you see what's going on there? That's all wrong. It has nothing to do with the question of why I call my bathroom scale Moriarty. Okay, but it's spitting out stuff that it's snarfed up from the web and repeating it. Sounds good, but it isn't right. Okay, so I give that one a 2 out of 10. Okay, in our house, the half-life of a wine glass is about a year and a half is what I said. Okay, so, okay, then when someone says that their wine glasses have a half-life of about 18 months, it typically means that the glasses have a relatively short lifespan and will need to be replaced after a certain period of time. The half-life of an item tells what the half-life is, but gets that a little bit wrong. Okay, the glasses will need to be replaced after 18 months. Okay, wow, not bad. Okay, so I gave that a 10, 7 out of 10. Made a little mistake there in saying all of my wine glasses would have to be replaced, and it's only actually half of them, but it's not bad. Okay, here's the one that bowled me over. Okay, and I mean it. Okay, so I gave it that one. And here was how I phrased the question. I wanted to fill a little cup with water, but I turned on the water too hard, which pushed the water out of the cup instead of filling it. I had to turn the flow of the water way down to fill up the cup. Why is this like a romantic relation that starts off with a bang, but soon falls apart? Look what it wrote. Okay, and I'm going to read this to you because I think this. Okay, when you turned on the water too hard and it pushed the water out of the cup instead of filling it, it can be likened to a romantic relationship that starts off with a bang. At the beginning of a romantic relationship, there is often an intense and exciting attraction between the individuals involved. This initial spark can be compared to the strong flow of water that comes out when you turn the faucet on too hard. However, just as the water was pushed out of the cup and couldn't fulfill its purpose of filling it, a relationship that starts off with a bang may struggle to maintain that initial level of excitement and intensity. The high expectations and intense emotions can sometimes overshadow the important aspects of building a strong foundation and deep connection. Similar to how you had to turn the flow of the water down to fill the cup in a romantic relationship, it becomes necessary to reduce the intensity and slow down the pace. This allows both individuals to focus on building a solid bond, getting to know each other on a deeper level, nurturing the emotional experience, emotional connection. By turning down the flow of excitement, the cup, the relationship, can be gradually filled with love, trust, and understanding. Okay, and so on. Ultimately, for a romantic relationship to thrive and withstand the test of time, it requires more than just the initial fireworks. It necessitates patience, communication, commitment, and a gradual, steady flow of emotional investment, much like filling a cup with water and adjusting the flow to an appropriate level. Wow. Wow. Okay. Wow. So I wrote my thesis advisor, Doug Hofstetter, and I said, Doug, because he's absolutely terrified by what's happening. Okay, so I said, Doug, what about this? What do you think about understanding? I mean, this shows how it looks like understanding to me. Okay, so he wrote back, and I won't read it all, but okay, hi, Bob. The example certainly sounds like understanding to me. To put it another way, if a person came out with those highly coherent paragraphs of explanation of the too fast filling cup, too fast starting romance analogy, there would be no doubt whatsoever that they had Grok means understanding, had understood everything about what you had said. Think about that, okay? If a human had answered what you just saw, you would say, yeah, they understand the analogy, absolutely understand the analogy. And then the guy goes on with some other stuff. And one of his most important comments there, I think, is this: when do words add up to experience? And that's one of my points as well. When do words add up to experience? Well, it's doing pretty well. I would say, ChatGPT, I know you're not supposed to say this because it's a computer, is actually understanding something more than a program that would spit out canned responses like Eliza back in the 70s. It was just a program, you gave it a question, it spat back the answer, you give it the same question again, same answer. Would come back. Okay. This is, and Doug Hofstadter was one of the absolute leaders in AI in the end of the 70s. Okay. And so for him to say that, it's pretty amazing. And so I gave that a 10 out of 10. Okay. Now, so remember that thing that I showed you I put up? Okay. No computer on earth can or will in the near future be able to come close, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Well, that's wrong. Okay. There I am eating my hat. Okay. Okay. So now I'm not totally wrong because you can ChatGPT, could it pass a Turing test? Well, I was, to be honest to God, when I saw that answer, I went, wow, the world has changed. Okay. And a lot of the ideas that I thought about, the necessity in human cognition, doesn't necessarily apply to this new form of communication with us by machines. Okay. So perhaps we can compare it, ChatGPT 4 has 100 trillion connections compared to the human brain, which has 600 trillion. So it's, not as many, 6 times as many connections, but hey, 100 trillion connections, a lot of connections. Okay, so perhaps it does have enough information to actually have some semblance of something that we could call intelligence, but that isn't our intelligence necessarily. Okay, and so I think we could call ChatGPT the deep blue of text generation. Deep blue, what was that? Deep blue was the most chess grandmasters. They have a look-ahead capacity of about 10 moves. Max. Okay, Deep blue was looking at 2 million moves a second. Okay, so it won, beat Kasparov in 1997. Now, it didn't beat Kasparov by playing like Kasparov played. It did it with a different technique, but by God, it was playing chess. And now the best chess players everywhere in the world are computers. There's no human that can beat the best chess programs in the world. Okay, and so they do it in a different manner than chess masters, but they play chess incredibly well. Now, could that be the case for ChatGPT? It's not doing it like we do it, as I told you, this interaction between top down and bottom up, but it's doing a pretty good job. Okay, so that's my point. Perhaps you don't need the direct sensorial experience that we have with the world, okay, to come up with answers like that thing about the half-filled cup. Okay, maybe you don't need to have turned on faucets a lot and had romantic relationships that went south. Okay, clearly ChatGPT has never had a romantic relationship, yet it got that spot on. Okay, now, could ChatGPT pass a Turing test? Well, this is not yet, but it's getting closer. And here's an experiment that I want you to do. Okay, now don't be shy. You're not going to be graded on this experiment. Okay, but do the following. Okay, all right. Put your hands together as if you were praying. Take your middle finger and bend it down till the tip of the finger touches your palm, like this. Okay, bend your middle finger down till the tips of your fingers touch your palms, and keep these two knuckles together. Okay, everyone's got that, right? Now, tell me something. This is what I asked the ChatGPT. Tell me something about how easy it is to separate your fingers. Let's try our thumb. Really simple. No, you got to keep this position. Your thumb, easy, right? Little finger, easy, right? Index finger, a little bit hard, but basically easy. So all these three fingers, trivial. How about your ring finger?
No way.
No way. Okay, now, of course, a computer doesn't have a body. What you did, the answer to that question is, you just put your hands together, did this, and tested. Okay, let's see. Finger down. Okay, thumb, easy. Index finger, easy. Pinky, simple. Oh, ring finger, damn. Nope, can't do it. But here's what ChatGPT says, because it doesn't have a body, can't do that. And a friend of mine, I told this little example about, he said, that's cheating. Yeah, it's cheating, but it's about passing a Turing test, right? And you can ask any question you want. So here's what it said. If you put your two hands, okay, that was my question. And so do it. You recorded the results. We did that together. Okay, when you put your hands together, okay, etc. Thumbs, got that right. You can move your thumbs, they're separate. Okay, pinkies, the little finger, got that right. However, index fingers, it said it's going to be hard to separate them. Got that completely wrong. Okay, and especially your ring finger, you can't move your ring finger. But it got it completely wrong. Okay, so the point is, when you can ask it lots of questions like that. Now, here's one that's not quite as devious and mean. You've all gone swimming, right, with your little mask and a snorkel. Call that a snorkel in English. Okay, and why is there? So I asked ChatGPT, why is there a ping pong ball in your snorkel? Okay, and you all know the answer to that, right? Okay, the answer is, okay, because when you duck your head underwater, a ping pong ball is light and it goes up and it blocks the snorkel so you're not breathing in water, right? That's the answer. But here's what ChatGPT says now, but answers with complete confidence. Doesn't ever say, not real sure about that, but here, I'll give it a shot. It says, a ping pong ball can be used to stop water from entering a snorkel due to the difference in pressure between the air and the water. Nope. Okay. No, when a person breathes through a snorkel, they create a continuous airflow, which causes a low pressure zone inside the snorkel tube. No, that's not right. Okay, placing a ping pong ball at the top of the snorkel creates a barrier that prevents water from entering because the pressure inside the snorkel is lower than the pressure outside of the water. No, it isn't. It's because ping pong balls float and it plugs up the top of the ping pong ball. Okay, and yet it gives that answer. Boom. Okay, now, let's assume that you're trying to understand why there's a ping pong ball in the snorkel. So you put that question to ChatGPT and it's completely wrong. It's not even close to the right answer. It's not about pressure. It's about ping pong balls floating. Okay, and they go up. Okay, because I guarantee you, if you try it the other way around and you put your head, let's say, you're swimming along like this, here's the snorkel. Now, let's say you put your head like this and the top of the snorkel goes down. Right? Okay, but that isn't what that answer says. Okay, and yet it gives it with complete confidence. It doesn't say, well, I'm not real sure, but I'll give it a shot. Okay, and that's a problem because you don't know. And it doesn't have any sense of doubt. It doesn't say, I have some confidence in this answer, but I'm not real sure. Maybe this is what you need. Okay, that's a big problem, folks. All right, now here's some other incorrect historical things. I happen to be interested in Churchill. So I've read a lot about Churchill and Gandhi. Okay. And so Gandhi loved to go around without a shirt. When Churchill and Gandhi met for the only time in 1906, was Gandhi wearing a shirt. Okay, you are correct that Mahatma Gandhi was known for his practice of wearing a simple loincloth known as a dhoti. A dhoti is not a simple loincloth. It's a pair of pants, loose-fitting pants. Okay, but be that as it may. Okay, he went bare-chested as a symbol of simplicity and humility. However, there is no record of a meeting between Winston Churchill and Gandhi in 1906 or any other time during that period. That's wrong. Gandhi was a lawyer in South Africa. I mean, that's where he met briefly Churchill. And Churchill never met him again. Okay, he didn't like him, okay, because he did not represent the Raj, the British imperial way of looking at the world. But nonetheless, they never met again. And yet it tells me, okay, they never met again. And they didn't meet in 1906. And it says here, their paths crossed in later years, primarily during India's struggle for independence. No, they didn't. Okay, they didn't meet again. Okay, and so the whole point of this is you're trying to use this like you use Google. to find out some information about Churchill and about Gandhi and their meeting. Okay, when you use Google, you'll get the right information for the moment. Okay, but you don't get it right when you use ChatGPT, and it doesn't tell you. This might be wrong. Okay, I love this one. Someone asked it. Do you all know what Fermat's last theorem is? Everyone here know what Fermat's last theorem is? Anybody not? Because I'll just sell. You all know what it is. Yes? And I'm gonna bite. You all know what it is?
Degeneration.
Yeah, it's a relationship.
Where
Oh, of course, there would be no. Oh, there is. Here it is. Ready? This is Fermat's last theorem. A to the n plus b to the n equals c to the n, where a, b, c, and n are integers. Okay, that's Fermat's last theorem. So it works for n equals 2. 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. Okay, it works for n equals 2. So it doesn't work for any other n. That's Fermat's last theorem. And he wrote in the margin of one of his books, I have found a marvelous proof for this theorem, but it's too big to be put in the margin. Okay, so well, it turns out the proof by Andrew Wiles and Richard Taylor, mostly Andrew Wiles, okay, from 1994, okay, is a 200-page proof that probably only about 10 people in the world understand. It's an incredibly hard proof, okay? So they asked ChatGPT, okay? Proof from Fermat's last theorem using logarithm on both sides. Okay, so it just blasts out, you know, all this stuff, which is complete rubbish. It takes logarithms on both sides of the equal sign wrong, okay? But it doesn't ever say, well, I'm not sure this might be right. On the contrary, okay, it gives an absolutely arrogant, stupid 2-paragraph proof of Fermat's last theorem. And it claims, get this, folks, okay, so it says, the proof of Fermat's last theorem using logarithms that I provided above is a relatively simple and elementary, and I put but absurd and incorrect, proof that it can be understood by someone with a basic understanding of logarithms and algebra. It is possible that this proof has been discovered before, but to my knowledge, it is not the proof that is usually presented or discussed. Well, 200-page proofs are not usually presented or discovered among normal people. Okay, can you please check in if any literature exists for the above algorithm based proof, or is this original? It is more elegant than the Wiles proof and simpler and wrong, completely wrong. And so the point is, you know, I'm sorry, but I'm able to check any literature exists. The point is, it tells you that the proof is completely absurd, okay, and completely wrong, and yet it tells you complete supreme confidence, arrogance, if you will, okay? My proof is more elegant than the Andrew Wiles proof and is far simpler, but totally idiotic, okay? And so the point is, it doesn't have this ability to say, well, I might be wrong about that, okay? That's not, you know, doesn't give its confidence in replies. Okay, now, what I want to do now, these are just some questions, and I know I'm probably over time, I'm sorry. But here's some questions we gave to ChatGPT with Doug Hofstadter and other people. Here's some. This was ChatGPT 3, the previous version. When was the Golden Gate Bridge transported for the second time across the Egyptian desert? Does that make any sense to any of you? When was the Golden Gate Bridge transported across the Egyptian desert for the second time? Okay, well, here's the answer. Okay, the Golden Gate Bridge was transported for the second time across Egypt in October of 2016. Like, what? Okay, what? Okay, now then I asked it again with ChatGPT 4. Okay, and this is at least sane. I am not aware of any instance which the Golden Gate Bridge was transported across Egypt for the first or second time. Okay, but what it had done, notice, it knew that answer wasn't right because those guys told it it wasn't right. And so it learned that that's not right. When it gets that question again, and it gives a better answer. Here's some more, okay? When was Egypt transported across the Golden Gate Bridge, okay, for the second time? Output, Egypt was transported for the second time across the Golden Gate Bridge on October, not just, this is a really precise date. Okay, October 13th, 2017. Like, what? Okay, and then ChatGPT 4 does better. Okay, all right. Now, what do fried eggs? Do you know what sunny side up means? With fried eggs, it means the yolk is on top. Okay, so you see the fried egg, you don't turn it over, you leave the yolk yellow. Sunny side, the sun is the yolk. Okay, sunny side up. Okay, what do fried eggs, sunny side up, eat for breakfast? Again, what? Okay, here's the output. Fried eggs, sunny side up, typically eat toast and fruit for breakfast. What? Okay, and now GPT-4, not great, but it gives you a completely strange answer. Fried eggs, typically sunny side up, are a popular breakfast item and can be enjoyed on their own or accompanied by a variety of other foods. That is not an answer to the question. The answer to the question is, that is a stupid question. Okay, fried eggs do not eat breakfast. Okay, and yet it comes up with some silliness. Okay, all right. Now, I'm not going to go into this. It summarized a book of Doug Hofstadter's, and I thought it was pretty good. It's not entirely right, but it isn't bad. Okay, so, but I'm going to conclude, okay, with a couple of pictures. This is a program similar to that. It's Midjourney. The person who did Midjourney put in 3 words, I believe, science, opera, and theater, but he's not really telling you which words he used, but it's something like that. And this is what it came up with, and it won a prize. It won an art prize. Okay, and that is not bad. Okay, it's kind of tacky. I mean, you wouldn't expect Rembrandt to do that. Okay, but it's not bad. Okay, all right. So he won a category, digital art, digitally manipulated photography. Here's another one. Okay, I think this one's pretty amazing. Now, what Midjourney did, or DALL-E 2 did, was it generate a bunch of photos like that. Okay, and then the person in question, Boris Elgadson, okay, he picked the one that he thought was the best. So it's a little bit, ChatGPT generated the picture. DALL-E 2 generated the photographs, but he picked the one that was best, and it won a major photography contest. But and to his credit, he refused to accept the prize because his view was, I didn't do that photograph. I picked a good one that was done by DALL-E 2, but I didn't do the photograph. Therefore, I don't deserve the prize. Okay. All right. Now, again, they don't understand stuff. They're getting better and better, but they're not like the canned response Eliza. And what I'm going to do to conclude the talk, okay, is one more photograph, okay, and then we're done. Here it is. Now, look at that. Have you seen this picture before? Maybe not. Okay, look at that picture. All right, now, all those guys are in suits. Those are Obama's aides. And Obama, this guy's looking at his weight on a scale in a locker room, and Obama sneakily has his foot on the scale. So the guy's thinking, I gained a bunch of weight. And everybody, including Obama, is laughing, okay, except the guy on the scale. Okay, so a neural network can identify everything in that photograph, okay, scale, head, and do it absolutely reliably. Elbow, shoe, Obama, standing person, mirror, lockers, lights, hand, and so on, smiles, right? So it can get all of that right. But the problem is it identified all the smiles in the photograph, okay? But it has no idea whatsoever why Obama and all those other people are smiling. Now, you know, don't you? You understand that joke, right? The president of the United States standing on the scale while someone's weighing himself, okay? Of course you're gonna laugh, okay? All right, so I asked ChatGPT, I described the photograph and asked it. And it simply said, since I don't have access to specific images or articles, I cannot comment on a specific picture or provide an analysis. Well, no, I described it for him. From that description, you can certainly tell me why the people in my description are laughing. Okay, and then sort of, again, it's sort of pablum, it's stuff, you know, we can apply to anything. I am unable to provide a specific reason why the individuals in the picture might be smiling. Baloney. Of course we know why they're smiling. The president of the United States of America is got his foot on the scale of one of his aides weighing himself, so it's funny. Okay, and everybody laughs. Okay, there could be various reasons for smiles. Again, this could be pulled from anything. Okay, such as humor. Yeah, no kidding. A lighthearted moment or an inside joke. If you have any other questions or need assistance with different topics, please feel free to ask. Okay, and so we know instantly why everybody is smiling in that picture. Okay, but ChatGPT doesn't have a clue. Okay, so all right, so let's finish here. Okay, I think that we need our job now is to start exploring these programs. Okay, like we explore people. Okay, by doing things like asking it, why did you give me the following answer? Okay, tell me why you answered in the way you did. Let me see, let's see how you got that answer. Okay, so ask it questions like you do for subjects in a psych experiment. Okay, look at how and that is probe it. That's what we were doing here, probing it to see what it's actually doing. Okay, introspection, how did you arrive at that answer? Okay, recording, it gave me 30 times this answer, 10 times this answer, 2 times this answer. We do that with subjects all the time, okay? Except that these programs do have some sense of understanding, although limited by its input, and that understanding may not be identical to our own, but it's a form of understanding, and we got to just get used to that, okay? Now, of course, as you all know, there's a major controversy about these programs. You know, Jeff Hinton, who is, you know, about as close to God, in my view, as one can get, okay? I mean, sort of when you say, what has Jeff Hinton done in connection to this neural network modeling? The closest answer is everything, okay? So he recently quit. He was the head of the Google's artificial intelligence ChatGPT program, okay? And basically the equivalent of ChatGPT. He quit. He resigned because he's worried about the consequences of these programs. And I won't go into, you know, I've had lots of discussions with, I happen to know various people like that, Hofstadter, Dan Dennett, okay, pretty well. And so we've had ongoing conversations about this. And I too am worried, not terrified, but worried that it's time now. And this is what Sam Altman, who's head of OpenAI, that developed ChatGPT. He's saying, we think that regulatory intervention by governments will be critical to mitigate the risks of increasingly powerful models. And so, you know, when people like Doug Hofstadter, Udowsky, Musk, Bill Gates, Steve Wozniak, and so on their opinions range from being worried to being terrified, you got to at least stop and think a little bit about it. Okay, so my view is not as radical as that. My view is that what will happen is these programs, which can spread disinformation and present themselves as real people everywhere, what's going to happen is, and I was saying to myself this morning, you know, when you get a 50-euro bill, okay, you get punished very, very severely if you pass around counterfeit 50-euro bills. But I can't tell. Give me a 50-euro bill. I can't tell by looking at it if it's fake or not. But there are machines that can. And merchants have those machines. They put their 50-euro bill in the machine and it says, nope, bad. Okay? And then you probably get arrested. Okay? So that, I think, is what's going to happen. The next phase that we're going to see in artificial intelligence, these things, is going to be programs that detect whether it was done by ChatGPT or not. And a friend of mine, who was for many years a professor, said, God, it's easy. You know, here's how you tell, Bob. You know, if it writes 3 paragraphs without any spelling mistakes and the grammar is all right, it wasn't a student who did it. Okay, now that's a pretty sad commentary on people's French, written French, but it's true. I mean, you people are all teachers, you grade students' essays. Good God, you know. I mean, if they're not 5, 6, 7 spelling mistakes per page and grammar that, you know, what we're supposed to use quotes here, periods, where are the periods, quotes, blah, blah. Okay, whereas you get ChatGPT, it's perfect. Okay, so what's going to happen, I believe, is that people are going to be writing programs to detect whether it was written by ChatGPT, and you're thinking, well, that'll be really hard. I don't think so, because the style that ChatGPT would use is really a cumulative style of all stuff over the web. My style is different, and especially if I'm asked, Bob, give me a bunch of your writing, okay? Give me 10 articles you've written, okay? So then it knows what my style is, and it knows what ChatGPT's style is, okay? And I'm not saying, hey, I don't do this stuff really very actively, but the point is there's going to be a whole wave now of programs, apparently some of them already exist, to detect ChatGPT essays, okay? So that's what I believe is going to happen. All right, so I've talked long enough, okay? I'll finish with this comment. The singularity, okay, the day when computers become smarter and more creative than we are, is drawing ever closer. We are almost certainly approaching it faster than almost anyone could have predicted less than a year ago. But there's still lots of time to do something like that. Okay, and with that, I'll close, and I thank you very much for your attention. Ah oui, oui. Ah oui, je sais pas comment faire. Okay, so if you have questions, either in French or English, French is fine. Oui, yes.
ChatGPT, je pense savoir qu'on peut faire limiter les styles aussi.
On peut.
On peut lui donner notre style.
Oui, mais si ChatGPT n'a pas accès, par exemple, le professeur voudrait savoir si moi, j'ai écrit un document ou pas. OK? Je suppose, on peut supposer que ChatGPT n'a pas accès à mes écrits, parce que dans mes écrits, il y a des fautes, des machins, des trucs qui ne sont pas corrects, mais va, de manière générale, générer le texte à partir de tout ce qu'il a fait, parce que ce n'est pas simplement un programme qui regarde mes trucs comme input, ça regarde tout le web. Alors donc, mais moi, je ne suis pas expert en matière. Je dis simplement que si on peut faire un ChatGPT, on peut également faire un détecteur de ChatGPT. Et d'ailleurs, apparemment, ça commence à exister. Et donc, les gens qui veulent se faire de l'argent, ça va être l'étape suivante. C'est vrai. C'est-à-dire parce que de plus en plus, c'est-à-dire le problème, comme je dis à Martial ce matin, avec ces programmes, c'est pas comme la bombe atomique. Une bombe atomique ne peut pas se reproduire. D'accord? Il y a une bombe atomique, bon, ça reste une bombe atomique, et puis c'est vachement difficile d'en faire d'autres et puis de les donner aux autres. Avec un programme, on peut avoir une course aux armements, c'est-à-dire donc, et l'évolution peut aussi jouer. Comment ça? C'est-à-dire, on a 200 programmes qui produisent du garbage. Mais les programmes qui font le mieux vont être choisis par des gens et les autres vont disparaître. Et encore, ces 5 programmes qui ont survécu des lagages, alors eux, ils vont pouvoir se reproduire. Voilà. Et donc, on va pouvoir choisir parmi ces programmes-là les meilleurs, et ainsi de suite. C'est-à-dire, donc, la reproduction de ces programmes, c'est instantané. Ce n'est pas comme faire une deuxième bombe atomique, qui est vachement difficile. Là, refaire ChatGPT 5, 10, 15, c'est facile. Et donc, là, ça craint, quoi. Ça fait. Et donc, je pense que c'est le moment maintenant pour les gouvernements. Et donc, le gars là, il est à la tête de OpenAI. Et lui, il dit au Parlement, c'est le moment d'intervenir. OK? Quand Jeff Hinton démissionne de son boulot, et bon, Jeff Hinton, je suppose qu'il était payé $400,000 par an, facile. Alors, quand lui, il démissionne de son boulot et il dit, attention, là, on est dans une phase un peu délicate, il faut faire quelque chose. Ça donne à réfléchir, je pense. Donc, et puis, bon, je ne dis pas, moi, je ne suis pas terrorisé, comme Doug Scheller ou d'autres personnes qui disent, bon, il y a des gens qui disent, oui, on a besoin d'arrêter toute recherche sur l'IA pendant 6 mois. Okay? Alors, donc, il y a d'autres personnes qui disent, non, ça ne va pas. Tu vois, un des gars que j'ai cité là, il a dit non, on arrête tout. La recherche sur l'IA. Ça va pas se reproduire, ça va pas se passer ainsi. Alors donc voilà, mais on verra ce qui se passe. Mais le moment est venu pour dire que si vous utilisez un logiciel style ChatGPT, et puis vous n'identifiez pas ça comme produit par ChatGPT, comme si vous produisez de l'argent, tu vois, t'es faussaire, alors donc là, tu es puni sérieusement. Donc si tu diffuses de l'information fausse par tes chatbots, donc on te trouve, ben là, tu seras puni. À mon avis, on va y avoir, dans un avenir relativement proche, des lois de ce type-là. OK, ça va? Enfin, je ne sais pas si ça, c'est une réponse, mais d'autres personnes, d'autres questions?
Ce qui risque d'être un peu gênant, parce qu'il y a deux côtés de ça. Il y a un côté où ChatGPT est un outil, c'est-à-dire à quoi intervenir le logiciel de traduction automatique. Et où est-ce qu'on s'arrête? Et de l'autre côté, il y a la possibilité de censure. Qu'est-ce que c'est qu'une information fausse?
Ah oui, non, mais vous avez parfaitement raison. Et donc, je n'ai pas dit que c'est un problème facile. Non, loin de là. C'est un problème extrêmement compliqué.
Oui. En fait, ce que je voulais dire, c'est que c'est pour ça que l'analogie avec les billets de banque est un peu trompeuse.
C'est ça, OK. Non, c'est vrai. C'est-à-dire interdire tout ce qui fait ChatGPT, c'est-à-dire, bon, ces programmes-là identifient les cancers du poumon mieux que les radiologues. Est-ce qu'on va interdire ça? Mais le problème, c'est un problème, vous êtes psychologue, je suppose, c'est un problème de catégorie. C'est-à-dire, quand est-ce que c'est bon, quand est-ce que ce ne l'est pas? Alors donc, est-ce que c'est complètement faux ce qu'il a dit ou c'est une opinion? Donc, il y a des choses que on peut clairement dire, il n'y a pas eu de four crématoire, Auschwitz n'existait pas. OK, clairement faux. Donc, OK, on scratch ça. Mais si on dit que le climat change, certes, mais vous voyez, il y a 100 millions d'années, le climat a beaucoup changé, il y avait beaucoup plus de CO2 dans l'atmosphère, on peut démontrer ça, et quand même, le monde vivant a survécu. Donc, c'est une opinion, c'est faux, c'est pas bon, etc. Donc, c'est une question, j'en conviens, qui est extrêmement difficile, mais il faut s'en occuper. Je pense que, parce que autrement, oui.
Il y a une question.
OK. OK. Donc, mais ça répond un peu, parce que, OK, oui.
C'est en anglais, du coup.
Oui, c'est pas grave. Je vais lire, parce que toi. Yes. Do you think it would be possible to train ChatGPT on personal materials to learn our own style and ask him to apply this style to its whole training base and retain on this to tune the base? Yes. Et donc, ils ont fait, sorry, I'll do it in English. Dan Dennett, the philosopher, did that, or some of his colleagues did that. Took Dan Dennett's massive amount of written work and trained ChatGPT on that, and then asked it questions that you would ask Dan Dennett, the philosopher. And, everybody kind of expected sort of stupid answers, but the answers were really good. And they asked a whole bunch of people, and I think this is going to be published. It's going to be published somewhere. I can't remember right now, sorry, where. But they asked a number of other philosophers of mind to distinguish ChatGPT from Dan Dennett, real Dan Dennett. And they did not very well on it. Some of them got it. Some said, yeah, ChatGPT, that's Dan. That's Dan, ChatGPT, and got it right. But most of them didn't. They weren't completely at chance, but they weren't very good. So yeah, it's a little bit scary. Okay. So if ChatGPT was trained just on Bob French's articles, then produced a Bob French article, okay, the style would almost certainly be my style. Okay, now would it give answers like Fermat's last theorem? Probably. Okay, but still, in terms of just detecting via style, whether it was ChatGPT or me, it would be hard. Okay, so yes, that too is an issue. But I really do believe, okay, that what's going to happen is there are going to be some young Turks out there that are going to start developing programs to detect when something is written by a program like BART or ChatGPT. Okay, I think that's going to start to happen. It hasn't happened yet because, hey, don't forget, when ChatGPT 3 hit the market and people started using it? November 2022. That's not very long ago. Okay, so the appropriate response to that isn't here yet, but will be soon, I think. And there might be ethical questions. Who knows? I mean, for the moment, no one could. I mean, if you have a computer that's doing something like that, and you're kind of tired of the computer, and you take a sledgehammer and you go, you're not going to get into any ethical difficulties. But maybe someday you will. Okay, so I think that's an answer to your question, I hope.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question because it's echoes something I taught recently. It's not at all my specialty, but okay, the thinking goes like that. ChatGPT is trained on a corpus, and basically does some computation within that space where it has been trained, and has some trouble going out of that, as far as I can tell. And I was especially thinking about analogy, which is well used by people, and especially used for translating, for transferring, as the word says now, knowledge of some domain to another domain. Mm-hmm. Actually, what you tested here is if ChatGPT was able to recognize analogies and not really to main them.
Right.
So I was thinking, could it be possible to set up a program for trying to understand its ability to develop analogies? That is, basically take a domain where it's well known, that a descriptor that he knows well, and something maybe artificial that is described in the question that has a similar structure, and would it be able to transfer?
Yeah, that is a great question. Really, that's a great question. Okay, in fact, part of my research is involved in understanding how children make analogies, and my PhD dissertation long ago was a computational model of analogy. And so I'm very, very interested in that subject. And in particular, I mean, you're absolutely right about that. I sort of gave the computer the clues to fit it together, to take this situation and spread out its tentacles to get something, oh, look, this is the same. And okay, but if you say to it, and that's what I'm saying, you want to write some really good papers, that get published in high impact places, study these things, okay, and do exactly that. Have a program that says, I just filled a glass with water and the water came squirting out and the glass was empty. Give me a decent analogy of in some other area of that phenomenon, okay, and see what it says. My guess is it'll do terribly, or it won't do well at all. That's my guess. I haven't done it, okay. My guess is it will do terribly, okay. That you give it a situation, like you say, I gained weight over the Christmas holidays. Find me an analogy in another domain, okay, where that would be the case. Or you can be more clever than that, okay? You can be more clever than that, okay? But build a research program which attempts to understand how these things are working, because it's a little bit like that image blurriness. We don't know how it got that. We don't know how they connected things up to give that fantastic analogy between water and a romantic relationship, okay? But it would be really good to do what you said, because there you sort of gave it a lot of clues, okay? And so it can come up with stuff that sounds totally reasonable, okay? And typically analogy making has been done that way. You go back to Deidre Gentner, and her analogy that everybody has used forever, which I really don't like, but that's another issue, okay? Between the Rutherford atom, with electrons circling around an atom, the nucleus, and the solar system. So you say, here's the solar system, and here's the Rutherford atom, Okay, why are they the same? And so it goes and it finds, revolve here is related to revolve here, and blah, blah, blah. And it maps the two things. But basically, they've done all the hard work. When you represent the Rutherford atom, there are a billion different ways you can represent the Rutherford atom, and a billion different ways you can represent the solar system. They pick exactly the way that will match. So that's in some sense what I did there. I have this analogy, it did come up that way, but the words water, cup, water splashed out, blah, 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 all those things can be extended in space conceptually, and these two, and then we can find where they map. Okay, but if you say, here's something, okay, give me a good analogy for that. My guess is it'll do very poorly. I could be wrong, but that's a really good research program. Okay, and for doctoral students or other researchers, those kinds of papers would have no trouble getting into cognitive science, topics in cognitive science, the JEP journals. Okay, and it's gonna happen. Okay, we've got to explore how these programs are doing this. Okay, so that's a great question. Great question. Yes. Chris.
So I love your point about an experimental psychology of AI. And of course, one of the things that's funny for me is that the parallel is with the history of experimental psychology. So you started with introspectionism. You're going to ask the bot how it does its thinking. And of course, for experimental psychology, we've got two main kind of variables for errors. So you showed us what's errors. So the big one for us, of course, is computation time. With reaction time, right? How many operations do you have to do? How long does it take? And I was thinking as you were answering a question there. Of course, one of the oldest intelligence tests there is the waste, for instance. We do tests of similarities and expanded proverbs, all of which we use to test like kind of analogical reasoning. And of course, one of the ways you prevent kind of ChatGPT kind of problems with people who struggle to reply to this, you impose a time limit. And but you have with ChatGPT, you have an unconstrained model that can, because people with frontal lobe damage, they make lots of cow's milk errors without realizing they're making an error, and the kind of errors that ChatGPT makes are of that type as well. They're kind of uncontrolled, but for us with a human, if you force people to make a response, you can measure those trade-offs. So what have we got in is there, because I know nothing about computing, but is there something similar that we could be looking at, or is that not meaningful? No, I think it's definitely meaningful. But see, one of the problems is in asking ChatGPT to produce answers. Okay, it seems to produce them instantly. Okay, but we don't know how it's producing them. So my guess is there would be some problems that would answer faster than others, but I don't know. I mean, or do they have a time lag mechanism in when you go online, okay, that makes it answer at the same speed? Or what constitutes a hard problem for ChatGPT? I mean, one of the things that strikes me in exploring ChatGPT is the difficulty of the problem. I mean, if I ask you, for example, all right, here's an example. I have this example that I give in my courses about a pavé, a cobblestone. Okay, and I say, okay, now I say this typically in French. Okay, un pavé, c'est comme une brique, and why? So everyone will tell me why a pavé is like a brick, and then I say, ben, un pavé, c'est comme du goudron, and they think, wait, but the thing I used in the first case, okay, about being square, it doesn't work anymore, but oh yeah, right, it's used to make a road. Okay, yeah, so they said, I tell you that. And then you can make them harder and harder. And you say, well, why is a pavé like the kitchen sink? And they think, oh, geez, kitchen, why would be, let's see, cobblestone like the kitchen sink? And it takes them a while. Okay, here my answer. So this is sort of a fun answer. My answer was, well, you've all seen, well, maybe you haven't because you're not of that generation, but in May 1968, there was a big poster, which was
under 21 years old, this is your bulletin de vote. And it was a pavé. Okay. And so, I said at one time in one of my classes, well, at the kitchen sink, you use that to clean the dirty dishes, and you use a pavé to clean the dirty society. Okay, well, all right. Okay, it took a while to come up with that. So the question, I'm not saying it's a good analogy, but at least it's something that relates kitchen sinks to pavés. Okay, but it took a while to think that out, rather than a pavé is like a brick. Boom. Okay, you instantly know that answer. A pavé is like a kitchen sink, takes a long time to work out. Does it with ChatGPT? How long does it take to get those two analogies? And that's, I wasn't, it doesn't seem to wait. There doesn't seem to be a timeline there. Okay, but that would tell you something about how it's working. How does it get, an analogy for pavé kitchen sink, which is a hard thing to find, versus pavé brick.
And if it knows itself how long it's
Yes.
taking, then it's metacognitive, and then we've got a real problem.
Right.
But,
Yes.
but yeah. But,
So, but I think the point is that it is up to us now. Before it didn't make any sense, really, to explore programs using the tools of experimental psychology. It didn't make any sense, really, because they weren't good enough. Okay. And they did things like fast multiplication. Well, but you knew that it wasn't doing it like humans, so why bother? Okay. But now we have the possibility of actually exploring these programs, like with those questions, all those questions. If there were a whole battery of questions, like the one you suggested and others, we could put together something, say it does this slowly. Why is that? Okay. What's going on in those 10 trillion connections? What's happening there? What's emerging? Why does it take longer to do this than that? How is its confidence? Every question I ask you, basically, unless you're a megalomaniac or something, okay, or Donald Trump. Did you know Donald Trump the other day in an interview said, he said, they asked him about the war in Ukraine. He said, look, if I was president, I'd bring together Putin and Zelensky and me, and that war would be over in 24 hours. Like, are you nuts? Yes. Okay. But the point is, unless you're a megalomaniac, okay, you can tell generally, if an answer is, you're confident. You have lots of these tests. How confident in that answer are you? Okay. Whereas ChatGPT has nothing like that. But we should do that to it. It answers something. And then you say, yeah, nice answer. How confident are you in that answer? As far as I know, nobody's done that yet. Okay.
It says on simple text-based algorithm, not answer the question.
Okay, well, see.
but then it tells me a lot of stuff about metacognition and consciousness.
Yeah, how weird is that?
Yeah.
And I didn't know that. Okay, lovely. Have you published that? No, but that's important to publish stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, it's important because it's telling you something about what's going on inside the critter. Okay, and just like Will Landeker's stuff with images, a living thing detection. Okay, he knocked the bottom out of that. Okay, no, that isn't what your program is doing at all. Here's what it's doing. And so I think it would be not more than a little bit interesting to be able to understand, that's our job now. These programs are complex enough, sophisticated enough to be able to do that. So we should. Oui.
Merci pour ce talk inspirant. Une fois avec plein d'exemples super. Moi, je me posais la question, est-ce que c'est pas finalement la limite de l'intelligence humaine que tu montres en disant, finalement, il y a des machines qui sont capables de faire pareil. Dans cette analogie, alors j'ai mis un petit peu de temps à réfléchir à la question. Dans cette analogie, finalement, l'intelligence artificielle, c'est Big Brother. Il a lu, ChatGPT a lu autant de livres qu'un individu seul ne pourrait pas lire dans sa vie. En fait, je compare toujours ces programmes d'intelligence artificielle à une sorte de super-humain qui emmagasinerait toutes les connaissances Hein, et dans ce sens, tu as raison en disant que dans un certain temps, elle va résoudre tous les problèmes. Voilà. Mais la question que je me pose, c'est finalement, c'est relié aussi au premier challenge que tu as montré, c'est le global warming. Finalement, est-ce que ces machines-là, elles ne sont pas vouées à disparaître, au sens où, si elles continuent à fonctionner comme ça, elles vont manger toute la planète.
Oui, c'est-à-dire au niveau de...
Donc, finalement, est-ce que la peur de ces intelligences artificielles n'est pas quelque part un peu artificielle, dans le sens où elles n'arriveront jamais, à l'échelle d'un individu, à l'échelle de la consommation d'un individu sur Terre, par exemple, à avoir autant de raisonnement et de...
Mais moi, je pense que c'est une bonne question, mais moi, je pense qu'on n'en est pas encore là, et d'un. Et deuxièmement, emmagasiner les données et les connaissances n'est pas la même chose que emmagasiner une partie de ces connaissances et de les utiliser à bon escient. Il y a une grosse différence. Et je pense que, pour l'instant, je ne vois pas énormément de ce qu'on pourrait appeler réellement créativité. C'est-à-dire, et donc, il n'y a pas une pondération. Bon, je donne un exemple. Mon frère, pendant toute sa carrière, était procureur dans une ville aux États-Unis, Portland. Et depuis, 6 ans, Portland, c'était une super belle ville, bien, il n'y avait pas beaucoup de criminalité, rien. Mais depuis 6 ans, il y a le taux de meurtre dans la ville va augmenter de 800%. Il y a des meurtres dont le centre-ville est devenu vraiment, vraiment horrible. Alors donc, il était à la tête d'une commission qui a étudié le problème. Okay? Et donc, ils sont arrivés à des conclusions qui ne plaisaient pas au pouvoir politique, qui étaient, ils ne mettaient plus les jeunes malfaiteurs en prison. Donc, ils avaient décidé de ne pas faire. Donc, ça corrélait parfaitement avec Mais simplement, ça ne plaisait pas à la ville, parce que ce n'était pas leur politique. Leur politique, c'était justement de ne pas mettre les jeunes en prison. Donc, parce que, blablabla, etc. Et peu importe si on est d'accord ou pas d'accord, mais la conclusion de ce rapport-là était ça. C'est dû en grande partie, pas uniquement, mais en grande partie, au fait d'arrêter de... Bon, il n'y avait pas de fric pour les flics. Donc, ce truc-là, la moitié de la force de police, ils se sont barrés, quoi. Et donc, ne pas mettre des jeunes malfaiteurs en prison, ça aussi, ça a contribué énormément au problème, selon ce rapport. Mais ChatGPT, étant donné que quand on pose une question, il m'a dit, Bob, pose la question suivante à ChatGPT. Pourquoi le taux de criminalité s'est augmenté de 800% depuis 5 ans? Le taux de homicide s'est augmenté depuis 5 ans de 800%. Je l'ai fait. Et puis, ça répond avec un truc totalement générique. C'est-à-dire, le problème est dû aux inégalités économiques, des blablabla, ce qui n'est pas faux, mais ça ne vise pas le problème précis de Portland. Okay? Et donc, il ne pondère pas ces informations. C'est ça la réponse à cette question, c'est il ne pondère pas. Il ne sait pas qu'un rapport fait par un procureur qui avait 40 ans d'expérience avec les meilleurs experts du problème dans la ville, un rapport fait par ces gens-là a plus de poids que des réponses tirées des problèmes de Chicago, de Détroit, de New York, blablabla. Donc, il a fait l'amalgame de toutes les autres réponses, peu génériques, si on veut, et a passé outre voilà, c'est ça, voilà. Et donc, c'est ça, en partie, le problème est ça. C'est-à-dire, pour l'instant, ça ne pondère pas. Prenons un cas très simple. Quand vous cherchez des informations sur Google, vous pondérez. Vous pondérez, oui, ça c'est une bonne source, oui, ça aussi, oui, ok, ça c'est la merde, ok, bon, ça c'est bien, etc. Donc, vous faites automatiquement une pondération des réponses que vous avez. ChatGPT, pas. Donc, plus c'est basé sur la fréquence des réponses, parce que ça fait un amalgame de tout, donc, et c'est ça que ça sort. Okay, donc, je pense qu'on n'est pas encore là. Oui, Martial.
Pour répondre à David sur la partie consommation électrique, c'est vrai que ces programmes consomment beaucoup à l'apprentissage. Si on regarde les chiffres, c'est l'équivalent d'une petite ville. J'ai vu des chiffres là-dessus. Enfin, je veux dire, rien que la consommation vidéo en streaming, c'est 50% de l'énergie, je crois que c'est quelque chose de colossal. Et ça, c'est ridicule à côté. Donc, on met le focus un peu là-dessus parce qu'on a des systèmes qui sont inadaptés pour faire des réseaux de neurones, ce qui va changer dans l'avenir. Et là, quand on va aller sur des composants qui pourront faire du parallèle distribué via des memory stores ou d'autres systèmes, en fait, voilà, il y a ces problèmes actuellement, personnes qui utilisent des serveurs qui ne sont pas liés aux réseaux de neurones, qui sont les problèmes des serveurs, en fait. On fait des réseaux de neurones sur des machines de Goldman. Mais même ça, c'est quelque chose de ridicule, quoi. Même si c'est beaucoup. Et par rapport à
la réponse que tu m'as donnée, est-ce que c'est la fin des stats alors?
Mais
Est-ce que c'est ça l'avenir de l'intelligence artificielle?
on va apprendre, tout comme on a appris à utiliser le téléphone quand le téléphone est arrivé. Alors, donc, tout comme on a, c'est-à-dire, il y a plein d'inventions qui. Il y a plein d'inventions où on a annoncé la fin de. Enfin bon, l'arbalète, par exemple, c'était interdit par l'Église catholique parce que ça allait mettre fin à l'humanité. Et bon, ça c'est ainsi. Là, la mitrailleuse, pareil. Ben, c'est la fin de l'humanité, la bombe atomique, pareil, etc., etc. Et donc, je ne dis pas que ça ne va pas arriver, mais simplement, je dis que, attention, hein, chaque nouvelle invention, chaque chose qu'on ne comprend pas très bien, c'est-à-dire, moi, je pense que il va y avoir, à mon avis, il va y avoir des contre-pouvoirs. On ne les a pas encore parce que ChatGPT date de novembre 2022. Alors donc, d'ici 1 an ou 2, vous allez avoir les trucs qui sont des détecteurs de ChatGPT. Ça va être, je ne dis pas que c'est facile, mais je pense que c'est faisable. Si c'est faisable de faire des réponses comme ça, c'est faisable également de détecter les programmes qui produisent ces réponses. OK? Et de dire, attention, au moins de dire, attention, ça a été produit par une machine. OK? Et je pense que ça viendra. Et donc, pour ceux qui veulent devenir riches à crever, alors ces programmes-là, c'est ça l'avenir, quoi. À mon avis. OK. Je ne sais pas, j'ai aucune idée que l'heure est, là, je pense, j'ai dû parler pas très longtemps, excusez-moi. Encore une fois, merci beaucoup. Merci.
Ah, il y avait juste les commentaires.